Hello, my friends. Thank you for joining me this morning for this brief time of prayer. As I mentioned last Sunday, I'll start posting two different videos on Sunday mornings. One just a brief kind of short meditation, and I'll post the sermon right after as well, so you can watch one or both or none, I guess, if you choose. But for these videos, I think, instead of opting to try to record a liturgy or different types of liturgy during this time while we're shut down again during this short temporary season, I just thought it would be best maybe just to simplify things. I feel like I need to just kind of simplify prayer. I need to return to a more centered state, a more grounded state myself. And I feel like maybe if I, as the priest, feel this way, there's probably one or two of you that probably feel the same way too. And if I feel like I need some more meditation in my life, you probably do too, right? And so that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to do some short times of meditation during these videos, these succinct videos, and I'll give you a little bit of something to reflect on that you can kind of ponder as you meditate, and I'll give you a little bit of guidance, and that'll be it. It'll be really simple. For this week, I find myself thinking a lot about a story that I once heard. I remember reading it while I was in seminary in a book that was written by Kenneth Leach, one of the great Anglican theologians, activists of our time. But he was recounting a story about how whenever he was in training for the priesthood, he was stationed at one of the poorest ministries in all of London. And it was more of an outreach ministry. There was like a little bit of a church there, but it was more of an outreach ministry to a neighborhood that was really struggling. And this outreach ministry was run by a group of Anglican Franciscan friars, which friars are basically, if you don't know, they're like monks, but they're more out in the community. So they live celibate lives, they live in community with each other, but they're actually, instead of in a cloister, they're actually out ministering to the world. Well, this Franciscan community, it was led by this kind of wacky, zany, profoundly holy Franciscan friar, and I cannot remember his name. I wish I could. But Kenneth Leach, who was there interning basically with these friars at the time for his formation for the priesthood, he started doing spiritual direction with the main friar of this community, the wacky, zany, profoundly holy man. And typically, if you've never done spiritual direction with anybody, typically like you sit down with your spiritual director and you kind of talk about your prayer life and your struggles and all of this stuff, and it's very much a dialogue, a conversation, and the spiritual director tries to kind of diagnose some things and then give you some suggested habits of prayer or some new routines to consider, things like that. Well, Kenneth Leach went to his first spiritual direction session with this friar and walked into the room. The friar was already sitting down in a chair, and Kenneth sat down in a chair right across from the friar. Friar never said a word. He just sat there in silence. And Kenneth Leach had no idea, like, is the man asleep? Is the man dead? What's going on? Why isn't he talking to me? And Kenneth even tried to kind of rouse him, but it was clear that the man was breathing. It was clear that the man was coherent. He just was he wasn't responding to Kenneth's words. And then after probably about 10-15 minutes of just sheer awkwardness, Kenneth realized what was happening. That rather than talking about meditation or contemplative prayer, the friar realized that the real need that Kenneth Leach had was to actually do it, was to submerge himself in it. And so he realized that this is what the spiritual direction session was going to be, just them sitting in silence together for the next hour. And he said it was one of the most profoundly holy, deeply spiritual moments of his entire life. And he remarked on this spiritual director's unique way of doing spiritual direction several times throughout the course of his writings. I really like that personally, because I think oftentimes we sit around thinking about prayer more than we do actually spending time in prayer. Thinking about prayer and praying are not the same thing. And we sit around trying to diagnose our spiritual problems when the reality is if we just started praying, our spiritual problems would quickly go away, and all of our anxiety about our spiritual problems would also quickly go away. In the Old Testament, there's a verse that says that the beginning of wisdom is this: get wisdom. The beginning of wisdom is wisdom. And there was a line that was it piggybacks off of that understanding of wisdom in the Old Testament from the ancient church that was kind of passed around amongst the sayings of the desert fathers and mothers. But they said that the beginning of prayer is prayer. Like the only way to learn prayer is by praying, not by talking about it. And so, yeah, if you're like me, you feel like this season of life has been like a battering ram to your emotional well-being and your spiritual well-being. And if you're like me, you've probably come a bit uncentered, spiritually speaking. And if you're like me, you've been anxious that you feel so uncentered, right? And ungrounded. And you have two options, really. This is what I've realized too. Two options: you can sit and be anxious about it and try to diagnose your problem, or you can just take it to God. And you can just pray through the problem, right? The beginning of prayer is prayer. The beginning of meditation is meditation. And for those folks who are tuning into this video, I get this all the time. And it's frustrating for me, to be honest, as a priest. I get this all the time. I talk about meditation or contemplative prayer or what have you a lot. And more times than not, people respond with, well, I'm just not good at meditation. That's kind of the point. Acknowledging your not goodness at meditation and still showing up to meditate, to pray, that is meditation. That's actually one of the highest forms of meditation, in my opinion. True, deepest meditation happens not whenever you feel like you're deeply meditating, but whenever you feel like you're deeply uncentered, right? Meditation is meant to be a struggle. It's not meant to be easy, because for all of our lives, we've accustomed ourselves to letting our brains kind of take us wherever, and our anxieties take us wherever, and our emotions take us wherever. And in meditation, we're showing up with all of that hot mess, all of that spiritual dumpster fire, and we're offering it to God, and we're seeking to kind of harmonize all of the parts of ourselves that are kind of going everywhere, right? We're trying to ground ourselves. We're trying to reconnect the mind with the heart, right? One of the sayings that is very predominant in the Eastern Church is that in prayer, the goal of prayer is to descend the mind into the heart, to reconnect things where we've come, pulled apart. And it takes practice, and it takes work, and it takes grace. It takes God's grace, right? So all of that to say, just simply showing up to meditate, showing up to pray, that is like 99% of what meditation and prayer is all about. Just show up. Just make it a point. Make it a habit. Just put yourself there. As one famous modern Roman Catholic mystic once said, and this is really helpful, I'll share it with you because it's been so helpful for me. Meditation, it's more about intention, our intentions, than it is about our attention span. It's more about intention than it is about attention. So meditation is primarily about intending to meditate, showing up, understanding that your thoughts and your feelings might go every which way, but intending to be there, intending to put yourself in that place of meditation before God. That is the work of meditation. It's not about attention. Like if you can sit through a meditation session, a prayer session, and you are completely undistracted and in harmony with yourself, right? And totally in tune with God, that's wonderful. But that's not what meditation is about. It's not about how much attention you can give. It's about the intention behind the giving. Make sense? Without further ado, let us enter into a time of meditation. This will be short, just 5 minutes. I invite you just to sit in silence with me with the hot mess of whatever it is that's going on in yourself today. Just sit with it before God and trust that God will do a great work in you, even if you feel distracted or anxious or scared or depressed or whatever. Under the surface, God is still doing something. So just show up to meditation with me in this moment. Turn away from the screen, close your eyes to the screen, and just listen to the sound of my voice. After 5 minutes of meditation, I'll call you back, and we'll end. Let us meditate. If you find yourself getting distracted, pulled out of your concentration, your attention is not very focused, again, that is okay. It's not about the attention you can give, but the intention behind this time of prayer. But if you find yourself getting frustrated because you're distracted, just let go of that frustration and just let those distractions roll on past, as if they're like logs floating down a river, or boats floating down a river, or clouds crossing your sky. Just let them pass. The author of The Cloud Unknowing gives a really helpful image. It says that whenever distracting thoughts come up during your time of meditation, just look over their shoulder. Just look around them. Acknowledge that they're there in front of you, but just look past them. Don't get overly troubled or anxious by their presence, and eventually they'll walk away. let us conclude our time of prayer together with the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Thank you for joining me for this time of prayer. Peace be with you.